VIP. All right, coronavirus update. You know how everybody's been running around talking about, oh my God, the death rate is going to be unbelievable. Oh my God, how are we ever going to be able to survive? I want to just talk about Florida for a second. All right, let's talk about Florida. There are a lot of sports media out there rooting for the coronavirus. Darren Rovell is one of them. I think he's going to come on the show Wednesday to talk about why he felt the need to tweet out to the SEC, everybody's dying. Look at all the cases and infections you got. If only you'd been smart enough to do what New York did. It's one of the dumbest arguments I ever seen. And I like Darren. And I'm enjoying him coming on the show. But it's one of the dumbest arguments I've ever seen anybody lay out. If you pay attention to the Florida data, and Florida does an unbelievable job of laying out the data. Florida just had one of their lead doctors go on CNN. I think he blew CNN's mind. And he said less than 1% of people who get the coronavirus in the Tampa area now are dying. Why does that matter? Okay. Well, let's take the worst number that is out there over the weekend. 15,300 people got the coronavirus. Okay. Tested positive for it. That would mean under the current numbers that exist in Florida today, that the death rate would be under 150 people. For the 15,000 that tested positive, the death rate would be under 150 people. So again, 15,000 test positive, under 150 are going to die based on the current Florida death rate that is out there. Even lower than that, obviously, who are young, all right? That is significant because what Florida's numbers are reflecting is the collapse of leadership and failure that we saw in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Illinois, Michigan, all of these states with Democratic governors totally blew it. They bought into the fear porn. They bought into the idea that everybody was going to die who got the coronavirus, and they sent patients right back into the nursing homes. And when you actually look at the data reflects that if they had just not sent patients back into the nursing homes, the death rate would be 60 or 70% lower. I frankly don't know why Donald Trump is not making a bigger part of his argument the failure of the media's beautiful favorite, Andrew Cuomo, who made the worst decision in the 21st century of any elected leader when he sent infected patients out of hospitals back into nursing homes and allowed the virus to spread like wildfire among the most vulnerable. And you say, why did he do that? He did that because he bought all these stupid fear porn forecasts that the media has continued to bombard us with. And the media has continued to bombard us with these such that Andrew Cuomo thought that he was going to need 140,000 beds. The actual peak, I believe, for New York beds that they needed was 18,000. And so he bought into the idea that he was going to need 140,000. You remember the convention center? Do you remember the ship that got sent up to New York? Do you remember all of that? Cuomo blew it, and now you're seeing as Florida approaches 70% of the overall number of cases that New York has had, Florida has more people and 1/10 of the death rate of New York because Ron DeSantis is doing an infinitely better job managing the coronavirus than Andrew Cuomo did. Now, you wouldn't know it based on the way the media is covering it, but even worst case scenarios. Look, the numbers started going up almost 3 weeks ago in New York. They went over 5,000 daily cases, okay? 3 weeks ago in New York, 19 days ago. Today in Florida, there were 35 deaths. In New York, there were 41. So even today, even amidst the Florida spike, the surge, Florida had fewer deaths than New York today. Not to mention 1/10 overall. All right, it's a big detail. Furthermore, Florida is making solid decisions instead of blowing it left and right like all of those Democratic governors did who ran up the massive death rates. Again, go watch the interview that I tweeted out of one of Florida's leading doctors. He said right now under 1% of the known cases end in death. Of the known cases. Remember, we're only catching about 1 in 10 of every cases. So when you actually do the math, if it's under 1% of the known cases, it actually means 99.9% of all cases people are surviving in the state of Florida right now. And there's an interesting theory out there which says that the herd immunity rate, if you look at Europe, if you look at New York, if you look at New Jersey, it appears to be somewhere between 10 and 20% instead of 60 or 70%. The data is suggesting, if you look at Europe where the coronavirus has just disappeared, and where, by the way, a lot of people don't wear masks. If you look at New York and New Jersey and the Northeast where the coronavirus has basically disappeared, the best case scenario, if that were true, would be exactly what's happening in Florida right now, which is mostly young people get sick and then they create herd immunity because most of them don't have serious health consequences. And then Florida gets to herd immunity quicker than they otherwise would. So this is absolutely a ludicrous media coverage situation where the data doesn't seem to matter, okay? They want a panic to set in Florida, but even if the 15,000 number is accurate in terms of everybody being sick right now, that would mean under 150 people would die from the coronavirus because the death rate has fallen below 1%. Again, you can go watch the video from CNN today. The data actually matters, all right? This is something that should be looked into. That's my coronavirus update. By the way, deaths went up a little bit. It's a little bit of a messy week with July 4th going on, but it looks like they are poised to come back down today below where they were last week. So we had 10 straight weeks of declines, a small little blip up, and it looks like they're going to start to decline again. We'll see. I could be wrong. I've said for a long time, at some point we hit the floor, right? You can't stop the virus from existing. So at some point you hit the floor. Maybe that's 200 deaths a day. But remember, 7,500 people die every day of a variety of different causes. So it's impossible to actually end completely.